20. So it feels a little backwards, but hitting 40 makes learning to code easier and more powerful than doing it at 20. So I always wanted to learn to code. I was great at mathematics and technical subjects in school, and I could have gone that way. But I got sucked in by the allure of business and marketing instead.
Well, sort of same here. I tried to learn before, but without AI helping me out, always got stuck and gave up on books and, tutorials. So this is the time.
Yeah. So now we're both 40-ish and we're both learning Ruby, Rails, and Hotwire. And here's the thing. If AI is automating everything, why even bother learning to code now? Why invest time in a skill we should have picked up decades ago?
Well, the short answer is you can't utilize AI properly without coding skills.
Right. And by the end of this, you're going to see how we're leveraging our business experience, AI obviously, and code to build real products now. Why we're not just chasing junior dev jobs, why we're not trying to join Apple or Google, but instead using code as a business skill to make real money.
So I listen to us. Well, I have marketed 400 plus courses. I fixed positioning issues and mental issues for over 900 business owners. On a record label, coffee shop, retail store, ran multiple agencies, and built and sold a 7-figure training company, ran operations for a multi-million-dollar education business with 40 employees. That sounds annoying. And fixed operations for over 100 companies, taught AI to 13,000 business people.
So let's break this down. Here are the 3 things we're going to cover today. First, why business veterans actually make faster learners when it comes to coding.
Which is the experience advantage nobody talks about.
Second, AI doesn't replace code, it just amplifies it. You need to understand the language of software to orchestrate AI. And third, coding at 40 is about systems, not job titles.
At this point in life, it's like being able to communicate in English. If you don't know how to read or write code in today's business world, you're at a huge disadvantage.
Right. And that's because software continues to eat the world. And with AI, it's actually the best time to learn. There's a really low cost of entry, not a low barrier to entry, low cost, as tutorials are widely available online, as are AI tools to help you learn. And, you can learn traditionally and then use AI as your tutor, or you can learn a whole new way, which is what Tom and I have been doing by orchestrating AI to fill in the details for you. Okay. So firstly, why do people with business experience make faster coding learners than others? Well, I've spent 20 years doing the entrepreneur thing, and I've always had to just learn what I needed to for the job. So in terms of code, that meant, little bits of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and PHP over the years. But I've never actually sat down for a bootcamp or went through a proper programming course. Just never had the time while I was busy doing business.
Be unstoppable in business, you need 2 things. Be able to sell and be able to build. And most of us only mastered one. So I have enough experience now in selling that I feel very confident tackling SaaS. Now I could build other things like another agency, physical product, or course, but they all come with too many annoying side effects. SaaS is the best, but also the most difficult business model.
Yeah, and here's what we discovered when we finally took coding seriously. Learning to code never really ends, right? Like if you're not a coder, you think that, you take a bootcamp and then voila, the next day you're a programmer. But it's just like any other skill. You learn the basics, but when you actually use it, you have to look things up, you have to reference things, and you have to learn on the job.
So the difference between us, which is business owners, and a developer or someone coming off the street because they don't like their job and want to code something is this. We know what to build. We know what our customers want. We know how to talk to them. We understand pricing, positioning, distribution.
Exactly. Imagine you were 40 years old and you couldn't really speak business level English. Now, of course, you'd want to learn as quickly as possible, right? And I believe the same thing applies to coding. And because of your accumulated knowledge of business, marketing, mental models, and experiences over 40 years, in a lot of ways, it's going to be easier to learn because you can target your learning to things that are real world and practical.
And that's the thing. We're not learning to become software engineers. We don't want to join Google, Facebook, Apple. We are building a software company, sure, but it's one that ships apps and makes money. Those are the only 2 goals in mind.
Yeah. And keeping that in mind, that we're learning a business skill to make money, that changes the whole approach, right? So, you may not call it technically pure, but the practical application is going to come much faster. And, by the time you're 40, your ability to learn the scientific method, if you want, is pretty well ingrained, especially as an entrepreneur.
So I was always proud of being able to make money online being non-techie. I mean, part of that was just being young and dumb, but it used to be a good way to go, especially when we all needed people to help out in this stuff. So all the competition was in the same boat. We all had the same overhead, so it was more about learning how to manage people, find them, and deal with them. But the moment AI could just do things or tell you exactly what needs to be done, managing those people who never really did an amazing job or were just too slow became pointless.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is that having a business context already plus AI tutoring is going to give you clarity. You know what to learn, what to build, and why you're doing it. So now let's talk about why AI doesn't replace the actual need to code. So it doesn't replace it, it amplifies it. And the funny thing is, every other week, I have a client tell me, AI is going to replace all programming. Pretty soon, you won't even need to learn to code anymore. And I just laugh.
Well, if you start playing with AI beyond GPT or just in the chat, you learn very fast that you can't utilize it properly without those coding skills.
Exactly. So AI, as we've talked in a previous episode, it's currently eating away at other business models, right? Especially things like consulting, agencies, and services. And yes, you can replace lots of those with good ChatGPT prompts or AI agents right now. And we're in the early days of this happening, but make no mistake, it is happening.
Yeah, the moment AI could just do things, or all tell me what needs to be done based on my training, right? Because I still tell it the way I want things done. Managing other people just became kind of pointless, like I said before. I've trained many employees before, over 100. And what happens is each one needs to be trained multiple times, sometimes on the same thing, still makes mistakes, doesn't do the work, it's lazy. Now, if I put that same training effort into AI that just does things the way I tell it to, it's amazing.
Yeah. What we said before, coding isn't going to be replaced by AI anytime soon. Now, the really low-level junior dev work, maybe. But we are still far, far, far off from going to, say, Lovable and typing in, build me a clone of Asana, and it just working. Right? Especially the way that Tom and I are approaching it. Learning to code at this point is almost like learning a new language. It opens up a whole new world of being able to talk to machines. And you need to understand the language of software to orchestrate AI to build the software that you want. So AI amplifies coding skills. It doesn't replace it. Now, the question becomes, how do you learn? You can learn traditionally and use AI as a tutor, or you can learn a whole new way by actually practicing orchestrating AI to fill in the details for you, which is colloquially known as vibe coding.
So coding is really one of the only ways to build things without needing tons of cash. You can put a stake in internet land and get something off the ground bootstrapping, which is impossible otherwise. Real land costs money, and to, let's say, build a condo will take deep pockets, yet returns can be very similar.
Right, which brings us to our last point, which is how we're actually going about this and our specific approach using Ruby, Rails, and Hotwire, and why we chose this tech stack in particular. So just a quick check-in. If you're finding this useful so far, hit subscribe and hit the bell. And we drop new episodes every week on AI, on learning to code, on app development, and the influencer game.
And drop a comment. Are you learning to code right now? What's your biggest challenge?
All right, so back to our approach. So coding at 40 is about systems, not job titles, right? So our approach is different from someone learning to get hired. So we actually started with a business idea instead. We then try to understand the architecture at a higher level. We understand the user-driven benefits and then have AI fill in the code. We do technical QC and code review, sure.
And we're learning Ruby, Rails, and the Hotwire stack, especially Hotwire native for mobile apps. These are all multiple frameworks bundled into one. It's a bit annoying to understand at first, but can 10x how fast you can build things after.
Yeah, so you might be asking why these specifically, right? So Rails is a mature, opinionated framework. It's been around for, I think, about 20 years now. And it was basically designed for business people who wanted to ship products fast, to not have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And almost every single time that we've spoken with someone we know who's had a successful bootstrapped software exit, it's been Rails. In our circles, it's basically called Rails money, right? Not Python money, not JavaScript money, but Rails money.
And with Hotwire, you can build real-time interactive apps. Like one great benefit of Hotwire Native is that you can upload an app to one of the stores and then upgrade it on your end multiple times, and it just upgrades there. You don't need to get a review every single time, which is amazing. And you also don't need to deal with JavaScript much.
Yeah, so this is the entrepreneurial side of us thinking and coding, right? We want to build, review, and ship and own the upside. We want to deal with App Store bureaucracy as little as possible. And look, we don't really care if Python is a superior programming language or why this year's JavaScript framework is technically better. We're not trying to pass an elite code interview at Meta or anything like that, right? Because at our ages, we're basically learning to code as a business system, not as a career path. So at this age, you already have the context to know what happens. You have the experience to spot what's valuable.
And then you have AI to handle 95% of the syntax while you handle the strategy.
Yeah, and it's never too late. In fact, like we've said, your accumulated business experience is going to make this all that much easier because you're not starting from zero. You're starting with 20 years of business knowledge.
Plus, you can utilize vibe coding. You can write out the feature, you can write out the test, make sure it's completed correctly, and let AI do the grunt work. You can step away for 20 minutes, work on something else during that time.
Exactly. You're orchestrating and managing. You're not typing out every single line and semicolon. All right, so let's wrap this up with what you should actually do. So remember, it's never too late. Coding plus AI at 40 lets you turn your accumulated expertise into leverageable software assets. So think about it. You already understand business problems. You know what customers want. You know how to validate ideas. You know pricing, positioning, and distribution already.
Now, you can add the ability to build the actual product without needing a development team, huge budget, or any of the nonsense that comes with that.
And code is just a system. And if you're good at business, you're good at systems. So you can learn to code, especially with all the help from AI that you're going to have nowadays. You don't need to worry about memorizing syntax. You just focus on understanding the architecture and guide the AI to build what you want. Then you QC it, review it, and ship it.
And own the upside.
So what should you actually do? So start here. Pick one problem in your business, something you'd normally hire someone to build, or something you'd normally pay a SaaS subscription for. Sketch out the architecture at a high level. You know, what does it need to do? What are the main features? What's the user flow? And then use AI to pair program the first feature. Use Cursor, Claude Code, use Codex, whichever you prefer. Focus on learning enough Ruby and Rails, or pick your own framework if you want to iterate. Try to understand what the AI is generating. Try to understand if it's right or wrong.
You don't need to become an expert. Like if you go with Rails like we do, the main thing is just understanding how Rails works, because it already takes 60, 70% of all the coding stuff out the way by itself. And then you just need to become competent enough to guide it and review.
Yeah, and ship ugly if you have to. Get version 1 out there, right? And then iterate based on real world use. That's how you're going to learn the fastest. That's also how you're going to validate the fastest. And that's how you build equity, not just skills. So if this resonated with you, we're documenting our entire journey on learning Rails, on building products, on using AI. So hit subscribe for weekly episodes. We talk about AI, learning to code, app development, and the influencer game. And it's all done through the lens of exit only, building for equity, not just revenue.
We're in the trenches right now. So if you follow along, you'll see how it's working out for us, the good and the bad.
Thanks for watching, and remember, exit only.
See you in the next one.